At some point in life, you encounter a person who doesn't just capture your attention, they fracture your entire sense of self. It's not infatuation. It's not ordinary attraction. It feels as though this person was sculpted from the very substance of your soul, as if their existence was specifically designed to fit into the contours of your unconscious desires. In their presence, something ancient awakens inside you, a silent recognition that bypasses language and strikes at the core of your being. And yet, the cruel paradox emerges: you cannot be with them. This absence doesn't feel accidental. It feels engineered by forces larger than you, as if some invisible architect, call it fate, the unconscious, or the mysterious hand of the cosmos, placed them into your path not to fulfill your longing but to expose it. Their very presence in your life seems to serve a function far more profound than romance. It is as if the universe, in its relentless pursuit of your growth, orchestrated this collision not for comfort but for transformation. Carl Jung, who devoted his life to mapping the unconscious territories of the human psyche, believed that nothing in these deep emotional experiences is arbitrary. For Jung, such encounters are invitations from the self, the totality of who you are meant to become, summoning you to confront the parts of your psyche that remain unformed, unclaimed, or deeply repressed. The appearance of this person is not a cosmic mistake. It is a deliberate activation of your individuation process, the path to psychological wholeness. This is not simply a story of unrequited love. This is a confrontation with your own existential incompleteness. You are not merely longing for them, you are aching for contact with dimensions of yourself that you have yet to embody. This person did not arrive to offer you love as possession or partnership. They arrived to reflect your own potential, to expose your inner deficits, and to initiate your personal evolution. In the grand theater of human behavior, such encounters represent a sacred heartbreak, not because they shatter your hopes but because they shatter your illusions. And in that rupture, the possibility of true transformation quietly emerges. Section 1. The mirror of your unlived self. You may believe that you fell for them, for their eyes, their voice, their way of moving through the world. But beneath all of that, something far more ancient was occurring. You were encountering yourself. Carl Jung called it projection, the unconscious mechanism that causes us to see our own hidden contents reflected in others. In this meeting, you were not simply drawn to their qualities, but to the latent potentials inside you that have not yet been claimed. What you saw and felt in them was never fully theirs. It was a mirror held up by life itself, reflecting the unexpressed dimensions of your own being. Their presence carried a strange, almost mystical radiance that bypassed your intellect and spoke directly to your instincts. You admired their passion, their freedom, their confidence, but what you truly longed for was the echo of those same capacities within yourself. The psyche speaks not in rational language but in symbols, and this person became one of your most potent symbols, the embodiment of your own silenced vitality. What seemed like admiration from afar was, in truth, an internal hunger, not for union with them, but for the unclaimed aliveness they represented within you. The mistake was believing that you needed to possess them in order to feel complete. But what you truly desired was not possession, it was permission. Permission to finally live as fully and courageously as you saw them living. They embodied the choices you have not dared to make, the creative risks you have avoided, the freedoms you have postponed. Every ache you feel for them is your own unlived life calling out to you through their existence. They awaken something buried, something primal, the person you could become if only you surrendered to your full becoming. You watched as they moved freely while you hesitated, spoke truths while you censored yourself, pursued their desires while you calculated your safety. The pain you feel is not rooted in romance. It is the brutal awareness of the distance between who you are and who you are capable of becoming. They are not your savior. They are your summons, a living reminder that you've been playing small, operating far beneath the vastness of your own potential. The grief you carry is not merely for the relationship that could not be. It is the grief for the unlived dimensions of your own existence. In seeing them, you saw what you have denied yourself. You saw the ceiling you've quietly placed over your own growth. And now you cannot unknow it. The smaller life you once found acceptable has been permanently exposed as insufficient. This heartbreak is not cruelty. It is a painful form of grace. It is the call to awaken. Most never realize this. They chase the person, thinking that possessing them will fill the emptiness. But even if you held them, the void would remain, for it was never about them to begin with. The void is internal. The absence lives within your own neglected growth. Until you confront these disowned potentials, no external person can complete you. Jung's projection isn't a trick. It's the psyche's desperate effort to force you into a confrontation with your own capacity for expansion. This person is not your missing piece. They are your reflection, a reflection of the self you have yet to fully become. In its brutal but precise wisdom, the universe never intended for you to have them. It intended for you to see yourself through them. They were never meant to stay. They were meant to awaken. Their presence is not your loss. It is your initiation. The haunting you feel is not the absence of their love. It is the presence of your own unexplored potential, now made visible. And it is from this place of revelation that your deeper work must now begin. And yet, before you can step fully into this transformation, you must pass through the fire of heartbreak, the alchemical pain that reshapes your very being. Section 2. The Alchemy of Sacred Pain. There is a moment when the pain strikes so deeply that it feels almost unbearable, as though the universe itself is cruel. You sit in that agony and wonder why someone who felt so destined, so synchronistic, could slip from your grasp. But what you fail to see, at least at first, is that this heartbreak is not a punishment. It is a surgical incision into the deepest layers of your soul. You are not being broken. You are being cracked open. They did not come into your life to wound you. They came to awaken dormant chambers of your being that could not be reached any other way. What you interpret as loss is actually initiation, the call to a more profound level of healing and expansion. While you ache in your solitude, they move on, or so it seems. They may appear untouched by the earthquake they caused within you, and this contrast intensifies your suffering. But you must understand, their role was never to stay and nurse your wounds. Their very detachment is part of your soul's curriculum. You feel abandoned, but in truth, you are being left alone with the most essential companion you have, your own unfinished self. They did not enter your life to complete you. They arrived as a mirror, as a catalyst, as a flame to burn away the outdated structures that once kept you small and safe. Their exit leaves you staring into the void they exposed, and it is in this void that your truest becoming begins. You may try to numb the pain, through distraction, through new relationships, through endless analysis of what went wrong. But these efforts are avoidance mechanisms delaying the real work. The sacred pain you feel is meant to be metabolized, not bypassed. Like the caterpillar dissolving into primordial soup within its cocoon, you are undergoing a disintegration of your previous self. This is not the end of love. It is its most potent form, love that demands your total surrender to transformation. The agony forces you to confront the emotional scar tissue you have accumulated, the old betrayals, the silent disappointments, the limiting beliefs that have governed your capacity to love and be loved. Without this confrontation, you would continue cycling through the same shallow patterns, mistaking comfort for connection and safety for intimacy. They came to press against your unhealed places, not out of cruelty but as an act of unconscious service. The intensity of your heartbreak corresponds directly to the depth of your unresolved wounds. You feel exposed because you are finally standing at the threshold of your most vulnerable truths. Perhaps you were taught that love must be earned, that you are only worthy when desired, that vulnerability is dangerous. Perhaps you have carried shame, guilt, or fear into every connection without realizing it. Their presence illuminated these invisible burdens. Their absence now demands that you release them. The pain you feel is the precise medicine your psyche prescribed to purge you of illusions that no longer serve your highest unfolding. Unlike them, who may remain unaware of the role they played, you are now tasked with integrating the alchemy of this sacred pain. This is your individuation, as Jung would call it, the process of becoming an integrated, whole self. Through the heartbreak, you are being initiated into a love that transcends personal longing. This is love that begins within and radiates outward, unbound by possession or expectation. You are learning to hold your own heart without outsourcing your wholeness to another. You are beginning to see that true love is not about acquiring a person but about embodying the vastness that person temporarily reflected back to you. Most people spend their entire lives running from this kind of heartbreak, terrified of the dissolution it demands. But you have been given a rare opportunity, a portal into a higher state of being. The agony you feel is evidence that you are still capable of deep, unguarded feeling, a capacity most have long since armored over. This heartbreak sharpens your perception, deepens your empathy, and stretches your capacity to hold both joy and sorrow simultaneously. You are becoming larger, more porous, more alive. The pain is not proof that something is wrong. It is confirmation that something magnificent is trying to be born through you. Now you stand at the edge of something even more profound. The realization that what you saw in them was never meant to be possessed but to be embodied within yourself. As this realization takes root, you begin to see that their role was not to stay but to spark. And from that spark, the fire of your transformation has begun to burn. Yet the process is not over. There is a deeper layer still, one that will reveal the truth of who you are and the potential that awaits you on the other side of your own becoming. Section 3. Integration, becoming the person you were meant to be. You once believed they were the missing piece, the one who would finally deliver you into the life you secretly dreamed of. Their presence felt like completion. But now, in their absence, a more profound truth has surfaced. They were never the end. They were the threshold. What they stirred within you was not a call for possession, but a signal for evolution. You were not meant to hold on to them, you were meant to awaken through them. The qualities you admired in them were not foreign. They were seeds within you, waiting for permission to bloom. You mistook proximity for belonging, when in truth the real belonging was always to your own unrealized self. They embodied a freedom you were too afraid to claim, a boldness you relegated to the realm of fantasy. You watched them speak their truth while you bit your tongue. You saw them take risks while you clung to the familiar. Their fearlessness terrified you because it exposed your own hesitation. But here lies the paradox. You recognized their courage because you have the capacity for courage. You admired their passion because you are wired for passion. You were magnetized by their authenticity because your own authenticity was pleading for release. What you saw in them was never a foreign light. It was your own light, refracted back to you through the prism of their existence. They walked ahead, often unaware of the storm they stirred within you. And yet, that storm was never their responsibility to resolve. You assigned them the role of savior when they were always only a signpost. They could not carry you into your becoming because the journey was never theirs to lead. They simply illuminated the distance between where you stood and where you are capable of standing. Their absence is not a void. It is a canvas. You are not abandoned, you are summoned. The pain of their departure is not emptiness. It is spaciousness demanding to be filled by your own expansion. You must now become the architect of the very qualities that once mesmerized you. Where you once relied on their fire to warm you, you must now ignite your own. The courage you sought in their eyes must now be cultivated in your own choices. The passion you felt in their presence must now pulse through your own work, your own voice, your own relationships. Authenticity is no longer something you admire from afar. It is the ground upon which you must now walk. They were the mirror, but you are the maker. Their existence was the spark. Your embodiment is the flame. This is the path of individuation. Not the fantasy of completion through another, but the sober, liberating work of integrating what was once projected outward. They were never your completion because you were never incomplete. You simply abandoned pieces of yourself long ago, out of fear, out of conditioning, out of survival. Their role was to make those lost fragments visible again. Now the responsibility falls to you. No one can embody your potential for you. No lover, no guide, no muse can substitute for your own commitment to become who you were always capable of being. They move forward, perhaps unaware of the sacred assignment they activated within you. And while they may never know the depth of the role they played, you do. You carry the torch now. Every choice you make, every boundary you set, every risk you take is a reclamation of the self that was calling to you through them. The relationship you mourned was never with them, it was always a longing for your highest self. They simply held the projection until you were ready to claim it. Their chapter in your story has closed, but the story itself is far from over. As you integrate this awakening, you step into a kind of sovereignty few ever achieve. The ability to love without clinging, to admire without needing, to connect without losing yourself. The ache transforms into gratitude. Their absence becomes spacious. Their memory becomes sacred. And from this place of integration, you are now prepared to encounter life in an entirely new way. But even this is not the final stage. Ahead lies an even deeper truth, one that will challenge the very foundation of how you relate to others and to yourself. You once thought that love's highest expression was permanence, that the ultimate success of a connection was measured by its longevity. You were taught to believe that staying together, building a life together, and walking alongside each other indefinitely was the proof of a love's worth. But now, in the quiet aftermath, you begin to see what was always hidden beneath that narrative, that some souls are not meant to stay but to awaken. They did not come into your life to complete you, to accompany you to the end, or to fulfill your carefully constructed vision of a shared future. They came to strike a match in the darkest chamber of your being, to ignite a fire that would burn away who you thought you were, revealing who you are meant to become. And once their role was complete, their exit was not a betrayal, it was the final act of service. While you ache for their presence, while you sometimes yearn to share your growth with them, to say, "Look what I've become," the truth is that their validation is no longer necessary. Whether they witness your transformation or remain unaware of the profound shift they triggered is irrelevant to the depth of your becoming. Their presence was never about being your lifelong witness, it was about being the catalyst. You have crossed a threshold now, one where your evolution no longer depends on external reflection but is sustained by an internal alignment that cannot be shaken. You carry their imprint but not their approval. You honor their role but you no longer require their participation. You see now that the universe operates through a far more mysterious and intelligent design than your former self could comprehend. The people who enter your life, especially those who stir the deepest emotions, are not random, they are summoned. Your soul called them forth long before you met. They arrived not to comfort your current identity but to disturb it, to rupture the carefully managed defenses you spent years fortifying. Their arrival dismantled the scaffolding of who you thought you needed to be. The desires you projected onto them, the longing for stability, recognition, completion, were never about them. They were reflections of your own unmet needs, surfacing so they could finally be faced and integrated. They, on the other hand, may continue through life unaware of the magnitude of the transformation they sparked within you. And that is the paradox of sacred encounters. One person's ordinary chapter is another's initiation. They might never understand the depth of what you experienced, and that is perfectly aligned with the roles both of you were destined to play. The sacredness of the encounter does not depend on mutual recognition. In fact, their unawareness often serves a higher purpose, freeing you from the endless loop of trying to explain your growth, seeking closure, or hoping for mutual understanding. Their ignorance becomes your liberation. This is the moment where many falter, clinging to the illusion that their return, their understanding, their validation is necessary for the story to feel complete. But you are different now. You recognize that true closure is an internal event, not an external conversation. The work was never about reconciliation with them, it was always about reconciliation with yourself. You no longer beg for their presence because you have become the person you were seeking through them. Their role was not to walk beside you forever, it was to initiate the collapse of who you were so you could emerge into who you are. You now stand in the vast open field of your own sovereignty. No longer defined by longing, no longer trapped in narratives of abandonment or rejection. Instead, you feel gratitude, not because the pain was easy but because it was meaningful. Love, you realize, is not measured by possession but by expansion. The most sacred relationships are not those that last forever, but those that permanently alter your trajectory. Their gift to you was not companionship, it was activation. The love you shared was not wasted, it was woven into the very fabric of your being. It lives within you now as wisdom, as strength, as embodied truth. And this is the final gift. You now understand that love is not something to be acquired or kept. It is a force of becoming. They were never the destination, they were the awakening. And in that awakening, you have touched the edge of your own infinite potential. Whether they return, remain distant, or fade entirely is no longer of consequence. You carry forward with the fire they helped ignite, fully alive in your own unfolding, walking a path that was always yours alone to walk. This is sacred transformation, the kind only the soul can orchestrate. You are no longer the person who met them. That version of you was necessary to attract the encounter, but insufficient to carry its lessons. Now you carry something far more valuable than the relationship you once desired. You carry yourself whole and awake. The longing has transmuted into clarity. The pain has given birth to presence. You walk lighter not because you've forgotten them but because you have absorbed the part of yourself they reflected. What once felt like unbearable loss has revealed itself as sacred alchemy. The void they left was never empty, it was filled with the person you were always meant to become. In the grand architecture of your soul's unfolding, this encounter was never a detour. It was a precise intervention by the intelligence of life itself. What you mistook as an ending was, in truth, an initiation. And now, as you move forward, you do so not with regret, but with reverence. Reverence for the love that awakened you, for the pain that purified you, and for the life that awaits you, richer, deeper, and more fully lived than you ever imagined possible. The chapter has closed, but the transformation is eternal.